Today's episode is brought to you by the Positively Productive Toolkit, a collection of workbooks that guide you through self-discovery and self-awareness. These self-guided workbooks, which include links to assessments, can be completed in minutes. Request this free resource and others at the positivelyproductive.com/resources page. Your physical surroundings affect your brain more than you might realize. And that's why we've talked about it so much on the podcast, why we talk about decluttering, why this is such a big topic. Your environment is something you have more control over than most of the other items on the list. So try some things, see what works for you. Small changes, clearing your workspace, adjusting your lighting, changing out light bulbs for something that's a little softer but still works for focused work, reducing background noise, wearing headphones. All of these things can have immediate impact on your ability to focus. You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. And if you've ever had a day where you sat down to work, had everything you needed, and still couldn't seem to get anything done, this episode might explain why. Last week, we talked about energy management as a framework, why your energy is actually more important than your time, and what it means to work with your natural rhythms rather than against them. If you missed it, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to episode 312 when you have time. You can keep listening to this one now as it also stands on its own. Once you understand that energy is the real currency of productivity, the next question is, what's affecting it? And the answer is that it's a lot more than most productivity advice ever acknowledges, and a lot more than we think of. We're going to look at 5 things that have a direct and measurable impact on your energy and your ability to get things done. Some of these you may already suspect, others might give you pause. All of them are worth paying attention to so you can identify and stop energy leaks in your life. What we're talking about here is so much more than motivation. When productivity stalls, the first assumption is that motivation is the problem, that you're not disciplined enough, focused enough, or trying hard enough. Not enough. It's a message that permeates our world, and I'd like to get rid of it. I'd like to be curious instead about what's really going on. That narrative, that not enoughness, is not only unhelpful, it's often just wrong. In episode 249, 5 Energizing Habits to Make You More Productive, I touched on how overall well-being affects our productivity, and we don't talk about that enough. Today, we're taking a step further, and we're looking at specific factors that drain your energy in ways you may not even be connecting to your output. That we've gotten so used to some of these things that we don't even think that it's actually impacting our productivity. The more you understand what's actually affecting your energy, the better equipped you are to work with it and to stop blaming yourself for something that was never just a willpower or motivation issue. The first one we're talking about, it's one of my favorite topics, sleep. This one might seem obvious, but it's so consistently underestimated that it deserves to be first. Maybe it's not even underestimated, it's more that it's a given, that you barely got any sleep. I think as a society, we're coming around now to this topic, but for the longest time, it was like, I grew up with a mom who would say you can sleep when you're dead. Hard work is the thing, not the sleep, not the rest. You had to earn the sleep. We're changing this narrative now. Sleep is so critical. It's when your brain consolidates memory, clears metabolic waste, and restores the cognitive resources you spent during the day. Multiple sleep science studies show that even mild sleep deprivation, losing just 1 to 2 hours a night, significantly impairs attention, working memory, and decision-making, often without the person realizing just how affected they are. And side note, if I remember this correctly, I think it can impact your blood sugar levels as well. That was one of my big complaints. I went to a doctor at one point. I was pre-diabetic, and I was in absolute sleep deprivation at the time. I was a caregiver to a toddler. Well, it was technically 2 toddlers at the time, and a caregiver to my mom. And she was sundowning at night, and I was getting no sleep. And I'm not saying that I was eating perfectly, but I knew that there had to be more to it. It's amazing how much our bodies are impacted by lack of sleep. So we often acknowledge we're not getting enough sleep. It's kind of a standard thing, but we keep going anyway. When we're sleep deprived, we tend to lose the ability to accurately assess just how impaired we actually are. We think we're fine, but we're not fine. Matthew Walker's research, detailed in his book, Why We Sleep, found that after 17 to 19 hours of wakefulness, cognitive performance is equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. Yeah, this is why we talk about being impaired on the road when you're tired. We tell our kids all the time, pull over to the side of the road, take a nap. Do not drive while you are tired. It's actually worse than driving when you have alcohol in your system. That's the kind of impact that sleep deprivation has on us, yet most of us are walking around chronically underslept, treating it like a badge of productivity honor rather than the liability it really is. Sleep isn't a luxury or a reward for finishing your to-do list. Let me say that one more time. Sleep is not a reward for doing what you need to do. It's a biological requirement for the brain to function. If your productivity is suffering and you're not sleeping enough, your priority must be to rest. The next thing we're going to cover that is a potential hidden energy drain is nutrition. Food impacts us in so many ways, and your brain runs on glucose, literally. The brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's total energy, despite it only being about 2% of its mass, according to research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. What you eat, when you eat, how consistently you fuel yourself has a direct effect on your focus, mood, and cognitive capacity. Blood sugar crashes have such an impact on you, the kind that follow a high-sugar meal or a long stretch without eating, potentially. They can contribute to decreased attention, slower reaction times, and increased ability. This is why I joke, but I'm not really joking when I say if you are struggling to complete your tasks, have you had a nap and have you had a snack? These are some of the first things I go to when I'm like, something's not right. I'm not producing like I need to. I need to take a break and take care of myself. Now, I want to be clear when I talk about nutrition, I don't mean following a specific diet. I mean following a diet that works for you. So a specific diet if you're working with a doctor or a nutritionist. So what all of this tells us is that things like skipping meals, again, unless your doctor or your nutritionist has agreed that that's something that you'll do, or relying on too much caffeine, again, you can pry my coffee out of my cold dead hands, but I'm also working with the amount of caffeine that works for me during the day when it's right for me, or eating in ways that spike and crash your blood sugar over and over again. All of those things are things you want to watch for, because if they're not right for you, they will show up negatively in the kind of work you're doing. The third potential hidden energy drain, this is one of my favorite topics. It's a favorite topic personally. I haven't talked about it a lot on the podcast because I'm not an expert in it, but I have a lot of personal experience. Hormones. This is one most productivity advice skips entirely, probably because it's complicated and you really need to know what you're talking about. But it's a significant factor for everyone, though it manifests differently depending upon gender and age. Hormones affect energy, mood, focus, motivation, and cognitive function. Why are we not paying more attention to hormones? And hormonal fluctuations that happen daily, monthly, and across life stages, they can cause challenges in all of those areas and more constantly. Some examples. Estrogen. Oh, that's a big one. So, estrogen plays a direct role in serotonin and dopamine regulation, which affects mood and motivation. Hello. Research shows that fluctuations across the menstrual cycle affect memory, verbal fluency, and executive function. And yet we're supposed to move on with our day during our period like we're the same as always. Feeling scattered or stuck? When your mind is full, it's hard to focus on what truly matters. That's where the guided mind sweep comes in. A short mindfulness-style practice designed to help you release mental clutter, reduce stress, and create space for what's next. It's free, easy to do anytime, and listeners tell me it's a game changer for refocusing fast. You can find the guided mind sweep package for free at positivelyproductive.com/PLP sweep. There's a big fluctuation, not to mention that we can also be in a lot of pain and be very tired and off as well. And for people in perimenopause or menopause, those shifts can be even more pronounced. Brain fog, fatigue, disrupted sleep, and mood changes are all documented hormonal symptoms. And there's tons of other documented symptoms. The list is enormous. And it's also part of what my life has been like over the last decade. So I know personally how challenging it can be to be productive when you are dealing with all of these things. Then there's cortisol. That's your primary stress hormone. It follows a natural daily rhythm, peaking in the morning and declining throughout the day. Chronic stress disrupts this rhythm, keeping cortisol elevated and impairing the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and focus. That is the adult part of your brain that does all the really important work for you. You want that functioning at its very best. And we've talked many times on the podcast about stress response and how that impacts it. Thyroid function is another one worth mentioning. An underactive thyroid is associated with fatigue, brain fog, and slowed cognitive processing. Symptoms that are easy to mistake for so many other things, not the least of which is laziness or burnout. And if I remember correctly, underactive thyroid and adrenal glands are connected. There's so much happening in our bodies, and we need to be paying attention to this medical side of things because we can be moving forward like we're doing fine, and we could be thriving more if we knew what we were dealing with. So the ones I mentioned are just a few of the heavy hitters to consider, but there's plenty more. Just think if your energy and focus are inconsistent in ways that don't respond to better habits, that don't quite fit some of the other things that you're doing. If you are resting as well as you possibly can or getting the hours in that you need, if you are eating well, but you're still struggling, it may be worth checking out the medical side of things. Have a conversation with your doctor because hormones are a legitimate productivity variable. The next hidden energy drain we'll talk about is illness and our physical health. Aside from hormones, mind you. Most of us know that we're not at our best when we're sick, but we often push through anyway. Or we recover from an acute illness and we expect to bounce back fast, right to full capacity, but we don't necessarily give our bodies time enough to do that. We even start in denial about getting sick many times because we can't afford to get sick. We got to push through, right? Pushing through becomes the norm. This seems to be a common thing that I'm saying all the time, that we keep pushing through. I think that may be one of the takeaways from every conversation is maybe we rethink this idea of pushing through, because we rarely give ourselves sufficient recovery time. And it's kind of like when you sprain an ankle and you haven't given yourself enough recovery time and you try to walk on it again, re-injury is very likely. So a side note on this and about the sufficient recovery time and the impact that we have after being sick, research on post-viral fatigue, and this was highlighted understandably by COVID-19, shows that the immune system's response to illness draws significantly on the body's energy resources, often for longer than the visible symptoms last. That means even though you are feeling so much better, or you consider yourself back to yourself, mostly better, good enough, let's go, let's get work done, your body is still doing very real work during that time. Now, chronic conditions add another layer entirely. I work with a lot of people who have chronic illnesses because there's such a misunderstanding in the amount of energy they have available to do things, especially when you start comparing yourselves to others. Pain, inflammation, autoimmune conditions, other ongoing health challenges create a constant background energy drain that most productivity frameworks never account for. I liken it to when apps are running silently in the background on your phone and draining your battery. You don't notice it at first because it's not visible or obvious. You're still getting stuff done. Things are still happening, but over time, the real effects come out. And it's no wonder because studies on the cognitive effects of chronic pain show that it consumes significant attentional resources. That makes sense. You're in pain, you're focusing on that, focusing on fixing that. And it leaves less available for focus and complex thinking. Again, it makes total sense, but we somehow feel like we still need to be able to step up and do the things, even when we're dealing with the chronic illness and the chronic pain. So this is where building systems that are flexible enough to accommodate healing and accommodate those fluctuations in how you're feeling and your body's constant fight to get to homeostasis, to get back to where it needs to be. It's why building these kinds of systems is so essential. The last hidden energy drain I want to talk about is environment. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Your physical surroundings affect your brain more than you might realize. That's why we've talked about it so much on the podcast, why we talk about decluttering, why this is such a big topic. Studies on clutter and cognitive function show that visual clutter competes for your attention and reduces your brain's ability to focus. Every item in your field of vision that doesn't belong is a small but real cognitive load. And we've talked about that in a lot of different settings. It could be the mess on your desk. It could be the stuff in your kitchen or in your living room that's just sitting around. It can be the extra things on your to-do list. And now we've also talked about in your inbox, all of these things. This is why we spend so much time talking about decluttering, because a clear space genuinely supports a clearer, more focused mind. And if decluttering is of interest to you, be sure to check out the decluttering playlist on the podcast page of the positivelyproductive.com website. So that's positivelyproductive.com/podcast. Go there. There's a bunch of playlists, and one of them is dedicated to decluttering, and there are a ton of episodes. Now, beyond clutter, you might want to consider anything else that could be distracting and affect cognitive performance, like lighting, noise, temperature, and air quality. Sometimes something as simple as opening a window or turning off some of the lights can make a real difference. Your environment is something you have more control over than most of the other items on the list, so try some things, see what works for you. Small changes, clearing your workspace, adjusting your lighting, changing out light bulbs for something that's a little softer but still works for focused work, reducing background noise, wearing headphones. All of these things can have immediate impact on your ability to focus. For some ideas on what you can do, check out episode 243 on how your home office can make you more productive. You might also want to check out 2 episodes earlier than that one on how being cozy can help you too. I've actually combined those 2 concepts, and I have an office that is free from clutter. It really helps me focus, and it's also cozy too. So it's really good for my nervous system, and it's good for my brain. For the sake of time and simplicity, we'll keep to those 5 today. But as you can imagine, it's not an exhaustive list. There are other aspects of our lives that have an immense impact on our capacity and productivity. Grief, for example, is one that deserves its own conversation, and we've had it, and we will have more again. Relationships, seasonal changes, major life transitions, all of these affect your capacity in ways that are real and worth acknowledging. The common thread is this: productivity isn't just about what's on your calendar. It's about what you're bringing to what needs to be done. So how do you honor these hidden drains? How do you figure out where the drains are and what to do about them? As with any list I give you, and I've given you many over the years, you don't need to address them all at once. In fact, I ask that you please do not try. Pick one that resonates most right now. You are listening to that list. Where's the one that you recognize yourself in the most? Get curious about that one. Is your sleep actually sufficient? Are you eating in a way that supports your brain? Is your environment working for you or against you? Have you given your body enough grace after an illness? And that can even include something like having had COVID and now dealing with long COVID. Sometimes there are very subtle things that happen with us, and we need to consider what kind of impact that might have on us. So whatever it is, whatever kind of jumps out at you as something that might fit your life right now, that might connect to you, start there and don't underestimate what addressing one of these things can actually do. I recently received a message from a client who had a clarity call with me and then purchased and tried out my minimum effective day planning training as well. One of our discoveries during her call was how much clutter was impacting her and how decluttering was actually her priority. That was one of the first steps we wanted her to focus on when she hopped off the call. And it made sense based on who she was. And that was something that drained her battery faster than it might others. It was a way in which she could create the right foundation for the new systems and habits she wanted to develop. She shared the following with me. Just wanted to let you know that I benefited hugely from our call and that it somehow caused a shift in me. I actually decluttered the folders and drawers at school in the last weeks, and I'm sensing how that impacts everything in my work and my energy. Feeling so grateful that you pointed me to the simple truth and power of decluttering. I'm also starting to get a better hang of handling my to-do list. The minimum effective day planning really helps me with prioritizing. It's a true domino effect, as you predicted. If you like the sound of this, but you'd prefer to have more support building a productivity system that accounts for who you actually are, a whole person with real challenges in a real life, let's do a clarity call together. It's a really simple, short call, gives you a chance to try out coaching. You can learn all about it at positivelyproductive.com/coaching. And remember, the more you understand your energy, what drains it, and how you can boost it, the better you can protect it, preserve it, and find your productivity stride. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.